Hey, everybody, this is Richard, and we are live for our first workshop on Wizard Killers. Wizard Killers is part of the Plus One EXP network, and it is a monthly stream, hoping soon to go bi-monthly, or twice a month, just to clarify, uh, about the art, craft, and theory of tabletop RPG and game publishing. And I am here today with an incredible art director, illustrator, artist, and designer named Robbi Burns. And I am really excited to have Robbi with us. Robbi, tell us a little bit about you and sort of your background in game design, art direction, illustration, all that good stuff.
Yeah, thanks. So I started my journey in comics. I went to school for sequential narrative. A lot of people are like, a lot of the artists I talk to are like, "Oh, I've been drawing ever since I could pick up a pencil." That is not true for me. I had to. I'm a big believer uh, in talent being a thing that you work to achieve and not really like a thing that people are born with. So yeah, I worked real hard, caught up to the people that have been doing it all their lives. Uh, Soon after getting into comics, I started getting into like TTRPG stuff. I've been freelancing all the while during that time, but I started getting into game book stuff in around 2018, whenever we did Glimmer's Rim, me and the writer Tyler Lamb for Glasscutter. I realized that I liked that more than comics, and it also is like more useful than comics. I hate to say that, but it feels better to like give somebody like a tool rather than like take some entertainment. And so like definitely my training revolves around composition, from having to do thousands and thousands of little panels. Like I always think in terms of like narrative and composition. So that kind of suited me for this work. And I've gotten to work with some great people since I started doing TTRPG stuff, like Art Sorium and Goodman Games. And
Oh,
I
wow.
got to, I got to do, I was really lucky to get to work with those guys. I got to do a thing with Jay recently, Jay Dragon as well. So hopefully, I don't know if that's released yet, Prince of Hounds, but I just did the cover for that, and that was very, very exciting for me because obviously big fan of Jay, but who isn't?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and I got to do a lot of storyboarding and stuff along the way too. Got to do some stuff through like PBS and Ken Burns through this group called Baker and Hill, in Memphis, and some like commercial storyboards and stuff. I've been full-time freelance over the last 3 years or so. So a smattering, and I'm still trying to, when I can, keep the personal stuff going so I can slowly transition to like more Glasscutter material, so I can draw what I want to draw, the most. But yeah.
All right. Sorry for the bopping around there, folks, on the video. We are having some trouble with our layout, so we're just going to go with a plain background rather than the lovely one, just because StreamYard is fighting us a little bit. And we want you to be able to see the work that doing this workshop. We really want you to see the work that Robbi is doing on their desktop. So Robbi, when I first started talking about this, we really just wanted to do sort of a visual creativity workshop. But then as we were talking, AI sort of exploded as a thing that everyone was sort of trying to recommend that people on a budget do. And I feel like there's a lot of folks who just have never had a good orientation to what some of the alternatives to sort of doing art and art direction for their books on a budget is, and think that AI is an easy answer when really it's really just a thing that is a lot like a lot of stuff that that art directors were already doing when they were faced with a really tight budget, which is using public domain art and stock art, using art packs from established artists, um, so that you're still getting money and respecting rights of artists, or if things have lapsed into the public domain, you're still at least respecting the intellectual property of artists and giving them a chance to be acknowledged and have their work respected. Um, but one of the issues that we're constantly finding repeatedly with AI is that we really, even with several of the leading AI art generators, are training their art on artists without necessarily acknowledging the source, much less paying and compensating that source, or even giving the person who receives the image a good sense of what sources were used to create that image. And that is a thing that we can address with stock art packs, public domain. These are all things that are very budget friendly ways to do layout and art direction and cover design and interior design for your game products. So I really wanted to get a chance to talk to Robbi today, because they've been an art director doing really amazing stuff with Glass Cutter Studios, and we got a chance to meet at PAX Unplugged for the first time, and really just started having that conversation then, and I'm really excited that you're here to kind of do and bring this workshop. And I promise that there will be no more screen bouncing around, folks at home. So let's see. We've already got some. Yeah. Hey to RPG Design and Odds and Ends. Glad you're with us. But I am going to hand it over to Robbi, who's prepared a great little workshop to kind of go through taking a piece of public domain art, stock art, art pack art, and sort of making it sort of work for your zine, your book. And I know there's the words AI on the screen, but yeah. Yeah, and then we're gonna just dig into it. If you have questions for Robbi, go ahead and type them in. Whether you are on Twitch or YouTube, we'll be able to see those questions during the workshop and be able to address them. If you have any things that you want to find out more about, we're gonna kind of dig into that a little bit. But Robbi, this is with other than occasional bits from me, this is all over to you.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks, Richard. So the thing that I was really excited to talk about is there's a lot of compositional, there's a lot of like illustration principles in composition that you don't need to be like super good at drawing in order to follow. And you can use these principles and these like classic illustration processes to be able to like craft an image and incorporate like textures, stock art, public domain stuff, all that stuff into your thing and make like an original image that you made. This is something that like to liken it to the classic illustration process. The classic process is I have some kind of like examples over here. Oh, I know I got it. Yeah, there it is. So here's like here's actually the one that I did for Prince of Hounds. So the classic process is to scribble a lot of thumbnails. You want to make it big and blocky. So thumbnails, the idea behind them is it's like cheap time. You do one of these in like literally less than a minute, as small as you can. And then whenever you do that, you're like ruling out all these not great things, not great options. And then
And Robbi, could you
Yeah.
tell us a little bit more about what a thumbnail is? When you use the word thumbnail,
Yes.
what is for folks who don't have that background in art direction or illustration, what is a thumbnail?
Yeah, so a thumbnail is it is cheap time, basically. It is if I'm actually I can demonstrate on the iPad real quick.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I'll go and switch over to here. All right, so this is what I mean whenever I'm talking about a thumbnail. It is a very tiny, like chunky black and white pattern. So like,
Gotcha.
so this, like that's a thumbnail.
Yeah.
Is it a thumbnail? No, it's okay. But I did it very, very, very quickly. And
but it gives you a sense of the overall composition of the art piece, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's
if you had a little
like,
more detail, it might give you a sense of like what the art was going to be about or where it might fit in the book, but it would be something that sort of gives you a sense of the composition and content.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the idea is you can do these really, really, really quickly. And then you can then add on top of that different ideas of like what each thing could be after you kind of like roughly block and everything. And in classic illustration, what you do after that is you would you'd collect reference images. So like, if you're talking about golden age illustrators, like these people were not just drawing straight out of their heads. They were using photographs and like, and they were using models and they were using props and lighting. Like they would set up spend a lot of money spinning up this whole thing. And honestly, like if you weren't doing that, then you're not really considered like a professional illustrator. I mean, you know, a lot of illustrators, you know, didn't do that, sure, but like it was very much just like a thing that you do if you're like serious about being a good illustrator. Right. And so yeah, these days we can get a lot of reference from the internet. So that, yeah, then I would take that and then I would take that and do like a line drawing based on all of these like details. And then I would finish it out. So what we can do, if I did not have the ability to draw, then what I would absolutely do is I would use public domain art. I'd use stock art. I'd use, I would even use like, I wouldn't even have to do that stuff. Like I could even just use like simple shapes to kind of make illustrations on my own. Of my own, but so instead of this like reference gathering phase, what we're going to do instead is we're going to like gather our like assets, and so these are all of the things that you'd want to incorporate into your piece, and then you'd kind of photo bash those assets together, and I did that. So.
And Robbi, just a follow-up question on going back to thumbnailing real quick on the composition thing. It is something you can do really early on to help you decide what kind of art you're looking for, or to help sort of narrow your field when you know you're gonna deal with stock or art packs or public domain images. Kind of doing that thumbnailing kind of gets you a sense of what you want and need on the page. Is that sort of, and for those of us who've not really got an art background, thumbnailing is a lot like getting a minimum viable like set of rules just so you could show up at the table and start the very early stages of playtesting.
So yeah, absolutely. This is the most important part of the process is I really want to concentrate I want to spend most of our time talking about thumbnails and what makes a good thumbnail, because that is so the thing that's so important here is whenever you're drawing thumbnails, you aren't looking at reference. You aren't gathering assets. If you want to like get inspired, if you want to like make a mood board, you can do all that stuff. but just like an illustrator would, anybody else who wants to like design a page, they would just start going pen to paper. So this is what makes it your piece of art, is the fact that you made the thumbnails, you made the composition. You're not doing like getting assets, or if I'm talking about drawing, getting reference, you're not getting that first, because then you're going to let that reference or your assets dictate your image. We don't want that. We want to be in control of the thing that we make, so that like we make a good and cool original piece of art. Maybe we didn't draw everything on the screen. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, like, these people made the illustrations and assets that you're using, the public domain art or whatever. They had a different thing in mind whenever they were making it. They were, who knows what they were thinking, but they sure as heck were not like thinking about how it serves your composition. So by doing the thumbnail first and locking down the composition that is your like original product, you can wrap everything else you're doing around that composition, and made a thing that is like that is good and yours, and like a thing that you did. And so
so I'm gonna show up a real quick question, because I think it ties in a little bit to this, and that's on the screen now. Question: do you have any thoughts or tips? And this is from Odds and Ends. Thank you for the question. Do you have any tips or thoughts on planning art and layout together, especially when you're not the only person working on a project? And that sounds like thumbnailing can really be part of starting that process of getting a sense of like, we need sort of a figure that's going to like loom here and kind of create a very dark tone before we start picking up our assets. Before we go like, this is a good asset, we need to kind of know what job that asset's going to be doing on the page, is the thumbnailing. And I think that feels like it sort of addresses part of what Odds and Ends is sort of looking for. Does that sound? Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. So what I think a process that I've kind of started picking up more recently. I actually have an example like right here.
Yeah.
So this is if I'm
blow your camera up really.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
So if I'm planning, this is literally like a thing that we're working on right now. If I'm planning a book, I'll just like write what I think might be on each spread.
Right.
Just make a list straight down to paper. And then what I'll do after that is I will get a sheet of does this matter? No. A sheet of printer paper. I'd fold it into fourths, and then I would cut it, and then each of those quarters I would then fold in half. And like that's your spread now. So that's left page, right page, and you can make a little tiny little baby zine where you're just like penciling, like roughing in. It's a thumbnail is that's what it is. And whenever I first do this, like I won't even worry about the page design at all. I'll just write like literally I'll write the word front cover or overview, and then whenever I start developing each page, you can then just iterate, like use like markers or whatever, but you gotta stay small, because it's the idea behind like this process and illustration processes in general is it is all about time management, because it's a rookie mistake, and it's very, very easy, especially if you like if you like me also have ADHD. It's very, very, very easy to get hyper focused and sucked into one idea, and if you do that, then like that's ball game. I sure hope it's a good idea, but your first idea is almost never the best idea.
Right.
So that's why thumbnailing is so important, because you can't get locked down if it's like the physical. I can't stress enough like the physical limitations of doing it very, very small, because you literally can't. You just physically can't focus on it. And like also like I wouldn't go about like doing it in pencil with an eraser and stuff too. That's why like on this material list I put like marker, because I yeah, I whenever I did this, I sorry to make you switch back again.
Yep. No, wait.
Richard,
No,
if
no.
that's
1 second.
yeah, cool.
Yep. There we go.
Yeah. So I used a Sharpie, and I did not know what I was drawing. So to give a little background, I was testing out this method with this project called Relics that we're working on. Kind of, yeah, it's gonna be a very short thing. It's just basically about like items that inspire a process with which items can inspire like a character arc is like what it is. And Relics isn't even gonna be the name of it. I don't know. So the first thing I did, so the first step in the process, whenever I'm like, okay, what are things that come to mind whenever I think about this this project? I'm not a writer, so a lot of you guys would probably be better at this than I am if you're writers. But yeah, I just started writing down a bunch of words. Story, sure. Arc, narrative. Property, yeah, it has to do with people's possessions. Keepsakes, events, that's part of it. Curiosity, path. So I'm just writing down words, because the thing that we want to do, this process is all about like starting really macro and huge and big picture, and then zooming down as we go. So yes, this is very small. You could also think of it as it's very far away. It's very like fuzzy. And what's even more fuzzy than having like a picture is just having like feelings. So honestly, the first thing, this is all for like doing a cover in particular. But the first thing, if you're gonna do like an illustration, is to think about like the feeling that you want to elicit, and that's what you're trying to get at. So after you do that, then you can say, okay, so the things that I have some feelings. I want to convey the story. I want to convey like an arc. We have like keepsakes, property, like words like that feel like there's like an element of dependability. So you want something kind of like strong. It's very ephemeral, and I'll show you. If we can switch back to my screen, I'll show you like why this is important. So just to like, I'm just gonna recreate.
1 second. Let me.
No worries.
There we go.
All right. So
Here we go.
So we're thinking like
on your screen now.
Awesome. Dependable. Strong. Good words. And I would just do that on and on and on. Okay, so whenever
and that's where you get that sense of mood that you want to convey with your design.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, the question is, how do you, like, great, we have some vague feelings. How is that helpful? So illustrators use a very specific thing called shape language, which is all about like shapes carry emotions with them, basically. I know this sounds very woo, but it's very true. Whenever you think about like the big three shapes are circle, square, and triangle.
Right.
So
okay.
Circle is like, it's cozy, it's comfortable.
Yeah.
It's nice. It's like warm. It's good. Square is it's strong. It is it's solid. it's unmoving.
Uh,
And then the triangles are typically kind of like seen as dangerous or exciting.
right.
Unpredictable.
Okay.
And this is the kind of thing that like you don't have to be good at drawing to make squares and circles and
Yeah.
triangles. The first thing that I did, the first like assignment I had in my illustration one class in school was to literally like cut shapes out of construction paper and
Mhm.
like glue them. I was bummed out because I wanted to draw, but now that I'm older, I'm like, oh wow, this is that was very 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 important because
Yeah.
simple is super crucial and important. And I'll show you guys some examples of what I'm talking about.
And just for a little context on why I was so excited when you started talking about composition, is I've done sort of my own layouts before, and they're usually mediocre, because they're free and they're mine, and I'm a writer and not a layout person. But one of the things we talked about when we did this initial interview is like you get a very exciting piece of stock art or something, you're really excited to use it, but then you put it on a page and it's just not doing anything.
Yeah.
And that's,
Yeah.
I feel like you're getting to a lot of that, like, oh yeah, you need to kind of know what you want a piece of art on a page for. At some point, you may not start with that. You may like brainstorm and mood board and then sort of figure out where you're going to use them and how you're going to use them. But at some point, you need to kind of thumbnail in what is this, what overall impression is this page making, and how does the art fit on that page?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I keep summarizing back in terms of like somebody who's not a designer but is a writer, and sometimes has to do my own layout. So yeah, thank you. That I had
Yeah.
always thought of thumbnail as something you do on an art order as part of the art order process when working with an illustrator, and never thought of thumbnails as something you do on the layout process. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's the same reason that like storyboard artists exist for like commercials and like live
Yeah.
action stuff is because wow, you're going to save just so much time and money by knowing what your shot is instead of like,
Yeah.
okay, everybody's here. We're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. We better not like waste time. Like it's uh, but yeah, they're basically they're thumbnails for your film.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is like my first real big media recommendation.
Uh-huh.
Is this Molly Bang or Molly Bong? I don't know how to say your name,
Uh-huh.
but this is all about what I've been talking about. And what she does is she tells the story of Little Red Riding Hood using circles and rectangles and triangles. And you can see here, this is a fantastic illustration. Like this is nailing it so good. There's a lot of like artists that use these just real big simple shapes like construction paper cutout stuff, like thinking about like the art of like Fiasco, like those images are very similar. It's inspired by some graphic designer. I
Oh
think I don't
yeah.
remember his name, but like this is another guy that I absolutely love. Jeffrey Allen Love is very much like your favorite artist kind of dude, because he just like gets to the core of like what good illustration is. So like this is a really good example of this is a big square-ish shape. So this dude's not moving anywhere. This is a wolf, obviously triangle head, very dangerous, triangle teeth, triangle nose. This guy looks terrifying, and he is just a big triangle. He really is just a big old triangle. And this is like I could just really easily see somebody like just making a big triangle, grabbing
Uh-huh.
like erasing out a little bit of like public domain art where they have a face and just like plopping that face on there. They don't even have to draw it.
Yeah.
And then like yeah, I don't know. You could probably just figure out this you could probably just do that with like the sword is nothing. And it's because the reason that it's so good and the reason that it works is because this dude just knows his number one, the composition is extremely good. Number two, he is very expertly gathering his values, which is like, yeah, that's another thing that we'll talk about. So,
could you give me that name
yeah.
again? I'm gonna add it to the show notes real quick.
Yeah, for sure. So there's Picture This by Molly Bang, and then there's Jeffrey Allen Love.
Allen is in like E-N?
A-L-A-N.
A-L-A-N, Love. And what was the name of that book again?
It's called Picture This.
Picture This. Thank you.
Molly Bang. Yeah. So, okay. So how do you do that? How do you get a real good thumbnail? So we got the emotion of shapes. That's like big one. I would say the other, make sure I'm not missing anything here. The other most important thing to actually, yeah, we can just, well, I guess I've already demonstrated that. So for the sake of time, I'll move forward. The other really big thing that's important is shape hierarchy. And all shape hierarchy is just having big shapes, having medium shapes, and having small shapes. And the reason why shape hierarchy is a really important fundamental thing. It's kind of like, it really is kind of like the secret sauce, is it because it follows like our lizard brain ideas of like golden ratio type stuff. Like whenever you look at a tree, you have the trunk, you have the branches, and you have little tiny twigs and leaves. And the trees are great. I'm a big fan of trees. Who doesn't love trees?
Right.
And yeah, and everything is like that. If you look at a person, a human, it's the same way. So understanding that stuff. So I want some solid shapes because of my feelings here that I want to invoke. I don't even know what they are. So I'll just do some like, so there's a small shape, a big shape, and I'll do like a couple little shapes. Yeah, so yeah, that's an okay composition. Let's just do like a couple more of those. I actually like that more, even though I did it in a quarter of the time. This is what I'm saying. Like, you can really just like slam these out.
And you don't have to be good at drawing or even really good at layout or design, right? Yeah, you're just good because you're just kind of evoking that overall feel, right?
Yeah.
In sort of a rough shape that approximates the shape of your page.
Yes. So yeah, that's what these little dots are here. So the other thing is that, I mean, the gut reaction might be like, oh, I want a square, I'll put it in the center. So this brings us to our other thing, which is we want to do what we can to number one, like be able to lead the eye around the page. And and here there's really, it's not, we just go to the center and then they don't have anywhere to go. We're not like going all around the page. It's not super interesting. You can have a really good composition that is very simple with just a thing in the middle. Sure, people do it all the time. But it's, you know, it's not super exciting. And a really, really easy way to just, you know, make that not an issue is, a lot of people are familiar with the rule of thirds. So that is, you'll notice on my little worksheet here, there's these little dots that are a third of the way down the page, and that's so I can put shapes in areas that follow these thirds. And so like what rule of thirds is just lining stuff up on a third is always going to make it look good. And so like having the area of interest, particularly like on these intersections, is always going to be good. Like you could have a person here. This is like, yeah, this is my little person. That's fine. If you move him to the right, that's kind of weird. I guess it works, but it makes me feel uncomfortable. I don't know. Like there's a lot of, if you just move them down, I mean, that is a choice, certainly. If that's like,
right,
it's all about the thing that you want to evoke. If you want to evoke an uncomfortable feeling like that, like go for it. But definitely like the most interesting version of just like this person would be if they were right there on one. It doesn't even need to be that one. If they were positioned like right here, that's great. Or I mean that's a little uncomfortable, a little weird, and it looks kind of good. So like, yeah, if you just like had a title of a thing and it was just a person, like right here, like that kind of slaps. Like I kind of dig it.
I also love the fact that thumbnailing is a really great way to get at some of the stuff we talked about with Lauren Belanco a couple of months ago, where you need to think about not just how your book cover looks, but how it looks when it's on a rack. How does it look when a store moves it into a rack space? Is the title going to disappear completely? Is the byline going to disappear completely? You may be willing to do some of those things, but at some point, like, is there something identifiable above that sort of like top portion that's going to say like, this is the book that you've come in looking for, or that's going to draw the eye or gets people excited to pick it up? Because sometimes, in a store, that's all you're going to see.
Yeah. So I did a lot of these thumbnails for this relics thing already. And one of the, and so one of the things that I kept in mind was like having the title up near the top somewhere.
Yeah.
Like I think if I don't really like any of these. I think it's neat how it's split up. But I was talking to my partner and she was like, I hate that. And I'm like, you know what? That's fair. I very much see that. So if you see the word, if someone's looked for this on a shelf and they see the word relics and they see this, like, they know to look for this little, I think that's supposed to be like a bag or something sticking out. Then that's a very identifiable thing. So whenever doing, there's a couple of like tricks that we can use whenever we're doing thumbnails. We got the rule of thirds. Obviously, that's a big one. Shape hierarchy, that's a big one. And I'll at the end, I can mention some places to do a deeper dive into each one of these things. There's a really good YouTube channel that talks about a shape hierarchy. And so we got rule of thirds. Another one that, and then shape hierarchy. And then another one is like repetition of shape. Let's kind of do a little subheading here that's leading the eye. So there's a lot of what's wrong with me? There's a lot of really great tricks for how to lead the eye around the page. And one is repetition of shape.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, all right, I got my. Oh yeah. So I can actually just like reference the ones that I already did here instead
Yeah.
of
Okay.
doing it from scratch. Oh, you know what? Yeah, no. Okay, we're gonna click through a lot of things. So this one is not it has a long way to go.
Uh-huh.
But to show you the thing that I wound up with,
Mm-hmm.
it is there. This is the thing that I settled on.
Mm-hmm.
What's in blue there?
Yeah.
Um,
So when you say what's in blue, there is what you settled on. Could you kind of translate that to us for folks who are very new to like working with page composition?
yeah. So the reason why I wound up with this composition is
Mhm.
actually it was originally flipped. Uh,
Uh-huh.
but I really liked how it we have these like square shapes that are similar shapes, and
Uh-huh.
they circle around. Here I can get another thing. They circle around. They lead the eye around the page like this,
Yeah. Okay.
and that like
It's a little bit the golden mean type thing.
oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, so we have all these like elements that are controlling the eye. It's also doing like the rule of thirds thing. Like this
Uh-huh.
is obviously kind of like an this this wound up kind of being. I guess like the middle is was kind of the area of focus, but really like the goal was
Mhm.
to just to lead the eye all around the page so that you see like all of the things, because the title would actually be like right here.
Right. Okay.
Um, so that is like a really good trick for leading the eye. And then contrast is also always like a thing that helps a lot. So actually, yeah, let me do the repetition of shape thing here. Oh, I'm red now. Let me think of a new one. Let's do something cozy
Uh,
feeling. Uh, Actually, I don't recommend doing this thing that I'm doing right now, just because I'm erasing, and ideally you want to just like taking a Sharpie and hammering them out is great, because
yeah.
you don't want to get caught in eraser land.
Where you're constantly trying to make it perfect. You're just trying to get a big idea.
Yeah. Um, hmm. Do another one actually. Oh, you know what? Let's do this.
Uh-huh.
And let's bring that down to hit this shape down to hit like a third.
Uh-huh.
So that looks good. Yeah. So in this
Oh
thumbnail we
wow.
have
Okay, yeah.
we have these circles. Obviously, I want the eye to do this,
Yeah.
and you get that feeling. And so this is yeah. So um, this is the power of thumbnailing. Is there's this
Mhm.
word called notan, which just means black and white pattern. If you
Yeah.
really get a lot figured out in your illustration, like in this phase, then as long as you don't stray from that, like you're really good.
Yeah.
I was
Mhm.
having trouble earlier because I started straying from, like, it happens to me, it happens to people, but
Yeah,
usually if
yeah.
things aren't going your way, then it's usually because you're getting a little far away from the thumbnail. Uh,
Yeah.
So yeah, repetition of shape.
Nice. Okay.
Um,
So repetition of shape, leading the eye, shape hierarchies, and rule of thirds are kind of the big things we've talked about so far.
yes.
And you really want your leading eye to sort of like pull you down along the page and find the information if it's an interior page, get the mood and tone and cover information if it's a cover page. Am I getting that
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Absolutely. And yeah, since I mean, yeah, I guess we don't really need to go like step by step
Mm-hmm.
with the process. I
Right.
think throwing in some things that are like very helpful is probably more important. So on the topic of, just because I see people do it a lot, on the topic of leading the eye around the page, because that's a big thing in like comics. That's a big thing in books and
Mm-hmm.
our RPG books, is always have like, if you have your characters in your thing, on your page, anywhere that they're looking is where whoever is reading the book is going to look. So if you got somebody
Right.
on the edge of a page, you want them looking at, if not the most important thing on the page, at least inside of the book, because there's a lot of like, you know, there's a lot of folks that will just be like, yeah, I have my, I commissioned this art. I got the stock art where I have like my character and he's like looking off this direction, and it's like, well, there's a real missed opportunity there to be able to like all this stuff, like all the stuff I'm talking about is total like subconscious stuff.
Right.
Obviously,
Yeah. Yeah.
like no one's gonna get bummed out, but uh, yeah, like what this is all about is like exploring why things hit hard, and that's like one of the things that
Right.
yeah, that's important. So just flipping that guy, oop, not that way. There we go. And suddenly,
Looking towards the center.
yeah, maybe this text, maybe this table here is like really important.
Yeah.
And then boom, you gotta. And then if you wanna, yeah, I don't know, if this page is all about getting to this table, and you're doing like a full art thing, then like, I don't
Right. Right.
know,
Right. Right.
like,
Yeah. So you might have a header above the guy, a little bit of intro text for the table, and that's
yeah.
your spread, and that's your. I think one of the neat things that I've seen more visual designers do in indie games is be thinking about the fact that everybody's is getting a PDF, even if they don't normally use the PDF, they're getting a PDF. And one thing you can do with the PDF, if you get the spread set up, is that's your handouts. Like a really good spread, you don't need a separate
Mm,
set of handouts because you've got your handouts sort of set up. All you have to do is print that spread out,
yeah.
whether it's for yourself or for anybody else. But like, yeah, thinking
Oh,
about
that's
like, hey,
cool.
yeah, Dice Cigars does a lot of this stuff, and like, there's so you see a lot of stuff I love how you're sort of leading us to that like that's sort of like thinking in spreads is also something you can do in the thumbnailing stage. Like, how did these spreads
Yeah.
work? Especially for, and a lot of us write short games. I know you guys run some short games, and we're all
Mhm.
working with Tony on Zine Club here at Plus One EXP. Uh, and zines especially sort of lend themselves to thinking about like, how does this translate to a handout?
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So I don't have to have a separate set of PDF handouts. My thing is already just read it, like print page 1 and 2. And that's the character creation handout.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm gonna start thinking about that.
Yeah.
I like that. So yeah, like another thing also is like shapes have like a natural direction too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so like these shapes are all like getting me to go
Mhm.
towards this box.
Yeah.
Uh,
And
and
that may
like
be a
a
call out, it may be a table, it may be
mhm.
anything.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
may be a snap.
So yeah, and I'm not even thinking about what any of this stuff is, you know? I'm just
Mhm.
like, it's it's all shapes. It's really just all shapes. Shapes are king for sure. Uh, uh, yeah. So we got that, and we're spiraling in. We have like a spiral, and we also have the direction of these shapes leading us in there. So like another thing to play with that you can play with in doing these thumbnails is if you have whiteout. I'm not gonna. We'll keep the screen up so we don't have to show me. I'll just draw a picture of what this thing looks like. You can use this thing along with Sharpies.
Yeah.
They're little Presto pens. And they have like a silver ball tip. And these things will cover anything. And so you can go back and forth into a thumbnail if you want to, like, say you have a thumbnail you really like and you're like, okay, yeah, I want to cut back into these black shapes. You can use the Presto to do that, because it is all about really, like, I can't stress enough, it's all about like this positive negative, like construction paper cutout kind of mentality, keeping it really, really simple. Yeah, the last thing I'll talk about is about like leading the eye, and about thumbnailing in particular, is our goal with thumbnails, and I think like books in general. Like, I don't have like a copy of Morkborg, but this is certainly, like, you could just by picturing it, you could obviously like say that this is definitely the case with it. Is you don't want people to like know that they're looking at a picture, which sounds silly, I know, but you don't want to like draw attention. Like, the way that you lead the eye and don't let the eye get trapped is you don't want to like draw attention to the edges of your picture plane, page, whatever it is. So like with this example, notice how I have this black line coming from here and not here. If I have it coming and hitting this corner right here, it is drawing attention to this corner. It's screaming, look at me. And I know I'm looking at a page, and that's not great.
Gotcha.
So yeah, you don't want to do stuff like, I don't know why that's happening. You don't want to do stuff like this, where you're just drawing focus. You don't want to like cut off the corners like perfectly like that. If you're going to do that, it's always better to like angle it.
So why is it a little better? So that just kind of keeps the eye focused towards the page.
Yeah, like if I'm looking through like a window, like a tree branch might like be going like that across the window, but it's kind of a natural for a tree branch to perfectly cut like a corner, and it's yeah, and it's like, it makes you pay more attention to the window frame than it does the actual tree branch.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's just like it's kind of like not natural looking, and it is, and it like, yeah, it draws attention to the edge of the page, which is not where your stuff is. Your stuff is in the page, so you want to try to like keep the eyes keep the eyes like moving around the page as much as you can, and that's big in like our like pages and like layout design, and also like illustration cover design.
Nice. Okay.
All right. Also, yeah, I'll get into this in a second. Okay. We've spent enough time, I think, probably talking about thumbnails. We can move forward a little bit.
Cool. Okay. I won't keep trying to bring us back to thumbnails, but I am blown away at how useful they are. So.
Thank you. Yeah. Oh, you know what? One more thing. more tricks. So yeah, I want to just demonstrate a couple of more things about thumbnails. You can use thumbnails because like early on we're talking about like feelings. Like if I was doing something, if the feelings over here, if I was doing something where like a horror kind of thing, where where it's like the vibes are like nervous, scared, um, foreboding. So you can do this, and you can communicate this through thumbnails too. So like we have our rectangles, or we have our triangles, which are dangerous. We have our squares that are like, you know, big and strong shapes. But if we put two big strong shapes, and like say I do have, if so this is like definitely if I'm doing a comic or something like this is how I'm thinking. Like if you have an idea of like what's going to be on the cover, of like what you want to feature, if it's like your main character or a character or whatever, usually illustrations with some kind of character in them are good, because it gives like the viewer a point of view.
And we're talking about games that are about playing a specific person.
Yeah. So in every environment drawing I have, I try to always just put a little guy in there. And it's crazy.
Yeah.
I had I went to the Illustration Academy a while back in Kansas City. It's just like this week to month long program, and there's this his name's Francis something. Oh, I wish Livingston. I don't know. Is that an author? It doesn't matter. But he recently got into like from illustration into the fine art world, and he talked about how none of his paintings were like ever selling, and he's so good. He's so incredible. And then somebody gave him advice like there aren't any people in there, and then he's just started like putting like little, just tiny dude. All of a sudden, his paintings just started selling like crazy. So it's like, yeah, it's funny like how actually big of a deal it is. But okay, yeah. So yeah. Say we got a little guy right here.
All right.
So this is scared, claustrophobic, foreboding. Like this person is in a very like visually and physically tight spot. This is a really, really good composition because we have, and when I'm talking about the hierarchy of shapes, I'm not only talking about, the positive space. I'm also talking about the negative space. Like
right.
Every time you make a shape like this right here, like I just made two shapes. Like there's this black shape, and then there's also this shape that's surrounding the black shape, right? So we have our big shape, big black shape, and then we have our medium shape, which is our white shape, and then we have two little tiny shapes, which is our little character. So shape hierarchy, check. Rule of thirds, check. It's right on there. It's not going straight off of the corner. So we have, we're not like, drawn off the page. What other ones do we got? Yeah, I guess those are like the main things.
Yeah.
And these squares are strong. So having these two looming squares, like kind of an intimidating thing. Say we want to make it even more intense. Let's add some danger. We can literally just like have triangles pointing at this character, and this is actually kind of like a classic composition. Is the surrounded by triangles composition. Let's see. Let's combine these. I don't like it. I'm starting over. See, this is what it's cheap time. Yeah. So here's another good one. We have this character that's literally surrounded by triangles,
Uh-huh.
and it feels very very intense for that character. They're obviously like in a predicament. This is a very dangerous scenario. Actually, and like what we could do. And whenever we're like grafting, whenever we're looking for stock art, like this could be like, this doesn't need to be, I know we're thinking about this as like construction paper glued to another piece of paper, but this could just be like a mountain in the background, and it's still a giant, like it's still a really big triangle that's threatening this person. This could be like, this could be like a wall, like in perspective. So like, so I think this is just wound up mainly being a thumbnail workshop, which secretly, I mean, I'm like,
that's pretty amazing. We're gonna have to have you back on to talk about, I think, making that transition into having your lining up your assets with your thumbnails, and kind of finding, collecting some of those assets, because I know where you're headed, because you've shared your notes with me, so I'm excited to kind of get there. So I'm going to be reaching out to you because, like I said, we're probably going to be going by monthly pretty soon.
Cool.
And yeah, you had talked though about a few extra deep dives, and I want to make sure to hit on those. About shape hierarchy and rule of thirds.
Oh yeah. So that stuff and more can be found on this guy Cynics has a really good YouTube channel, and he has like a playlist on there called Design Theory, and they're like 4 or 5 videos, and they're like 10 to 15 minutes long, and he is like, and he'll go into not all of, but a lot of the stuff I talked about. I don't think he talks about like emotion of shape. He doesn't really go into the emotion stuff at all. But in terms of shape hierarchy and like what makes a good image, he goes into that in detail. And he's an illustrator. He's a really good illustrator, but a lot of the shapes that he uses are giant, like squares and stuff. Like it's not, it's like that Jeffrey Allen Love stuff, it's so you really don't, it absolutely just applies to like good design.
Yeah. So this is not like about turning those 3 shapes into an owl. It's about like, turning those 3 shapes into like the overview of a sense of how the whole overall page should look. Or the cover. And then
absolutely.
And then I am so excited because I think the next thing we're going to do is bring you back on to talk about like that trend, like moving from thumbnail to actually using those assets. Because probably in the background, no matter what we tell you, you've been doing mood boarding and picking up assets and looking at pictures you want to use, public domain art you want to use, stock art you want to use. It is really easy for me to get completely lost in picking up stock art. And have big folders of it. But like I said, like frequently for me as somebody who doesn't really do layout, I try to do my own layout, and I just, I see this great stock art that just ends up not looking at anything like what I want, what I need it to look like. So that's amazing. Anything you want to say before we head out, or is there anything else you want to add or touch on before we go, or?
Just if people are looking to like put these things into practice like immediately, where I'm going with this, I didn't get into like values or anything like that. That's probably a lot what I'll talk about next time is just grabbing there's so much out there about how to do photo manipulation, like Affinity Designer stuff, but just grabbing, like using some of that stuff, erasing some backgrounds out, taking bits and pieces you like, and then kind of grafting them, like blowing up those shapes. Like this is what I did for the relics thing I'm working on, is having this little palette of assets and grafting those assets onto these shapes. And then like thinking about value is a totally different thing that that can be like a lot of the next thing. But if you want to start messing around with this stuff on your own, I think doing a bunch of thumbnails and then seeing how you can just like put it low opacity on top of what you're doing. And so whatever you're putting together, just following that black and white pattern as best as you can, and see if it makes like a huge difference in your work. And I bet you'll see a very big change quickly, and you'll feel more confident about what you're doing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm going to switch it to where it's just us, so we can.
Cool.
Hey, Robbi, we're back. We're back.
Hello.
We're back on. And I'm a little off screen, so I'm gonna adjust my camera just slightly. But yeah, no. So where can people find you?
I'm on Instagram on Robbi A Burns, ROBBIA BURNS. And then our website with our personal stuff on there is weareglasscutter.com.
Awesome. Okay.
And that's like where my portfolio and stuff is as well. And those are the main ones. But yeah.
And HTTP. All right. We are glasscutter.com. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is our very first workshop, so I am really excited that but this thumbnailing was just a breakthrough thing for me. It helped me understand so much, so I really, really appreciate it. I'm really looking forward to getting you on in the next few weeks, months, whenever we're able to do it, to kind of talk about assets, moving from thumbnails to assets.
For sure. And if you want, I can I can put this little worksheet that I did. This guy right here.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I got a little PDF. I can just pop that somewhere. I don't know. But yeah, I'll back however you want to make that available. I can get that to you.
All right, fantastic. But also thanks for those two great recs. Molly Banks, Picture This, How Pictures Work, and Jeffrey Allen Love's Picture This. Did I get those titles right?
So Jeffrey Allen Love is just the artist who does this really well. Molly Bang is Picture This, and then Cynics is the YouTube channel. The other really good composition book that I did not, I can type it here, is called Framed Ink. Oh, I have to connect the comment. I don't know. Okay, it's called Framed Ink. And it's ostensibly like for animators, but it just talks about, it goes a lot into the feeling stuff too. Really, really well. It does a super excellent job of breaking it down.
Perfect. All right. So Jeffrey Allen Love is a great exemplar. Cynics' YouTube channel, Framed Ink, and then Molly Banks, Picture This. Thank you for those recs. I am so excited for this asset class, and we're going to get it on the schedule and make some announcements about it. But thank you so much. In true Tony Vicinda style, we are just going to wave at the camera while we go. I'm going to wave with the hand that you can see while we go out. And thank you all for joining us. It's been a great session.
Thank you.